Welcome into the Carbonite Chronicles, presented by the Hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, this show is dedicated to talking about, reviewing, and celebrating the Disney Plus mega hit, The Mandalorian. We got so much to talk about, but before we do that, little intros. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
Ryan.
I'm Lindsay.
The gang's all here.
All of us.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that intro if you watch Jared while you do it.
Right.
I just try. I know for the video, it keeps it interesting. It's something to look at while Matt's talking.
Funny.
That's
Yeah.
not Matt.
It's not me. By the way, I see, Lindsay, you have a nice addition to the set behind you.
Thank you. This
I love
blank
it.
wall finally has something on it now.
I love it.
2001,
Yeah.
A Space Odyssey.
Yes. It fits the rest of my.
Is that a new acquisition?
I got that in college, and I've never had a frame for it because I always had frames for big movie theater size posters because I had them from the movie theater that I worked at. And I got this in college for my room and had it like taped up.
Oh yeah, one of those.
No frame.
Cool.
Like a.
Oh yeah, I used to.
Like a Neanderthal.
I used to tape things up to the wall.
Yeah, so it's kind of rough around the edges, but
It's amazing it lasted. It
like
made
an adult.
It made it. It's almost cool that it's got a little wear and tear. It's kind of been through some stuff. It's seen things.
I was like, oh, this is the yellow sticky tape from my college years.
Wow.
Gross.
Well, I mean, me and Matt thought it would be time to display our stormtrooper helmets on spikes because they've just we've just had them sitting in a case, and we decided it was time to display them properly.
So we're going to get into talking about Chapter 19, The Convert, which is episode 3 of season 3. But I think before we begin, if you have not watched The Convert yet,
wow,
you better get ready because we're going to spoil.
You better.
Thing. So what do we do?
Well, the spoiler Walkman has been giving me problems.
It's always giving you a problem.
So I decided to I'll try that again. I decided to try something new this week.
Really?
Yes. I have my friend here.
Spoiler Fonzie?
It's Fozzie Bear. And
Fonzie.
Did I say Fonzie?
Fonzie.
I did say Fonzie.
Dude, get your pop culture stuff right, man. Come on.
None of you can talk today.
Listen, it's bad.
Hey, Fonzie, how you doing? Hey.
Is that a banana? What's he got?
It's got a banana and a microphone.
Right.
And I've been discussing it with my Lego Fozzie, spoiler Fozzie, and I think we've got this worked out. Fozzie, are you ready? Waka waka.
Jesus.
All right. Waka waka. Okay, Fozzie, tell them about the spoiler alert. Okay, that's not what we talked about. You know what? Yeah, okay, just play the spoiler alert. Fozzie, I'll talk to you later about this. Nothing ever works right around here.
It's always off.
How was that supposed to work?
Well, Fozzie was supposed to say, waka waka, I got spoilers for Mandalorian.
Fired. He's fired.
And it didn't quite work. I think is my camera out of focus?
A little bit.
Yep.
It's probably for the best. Here we go. Watch this. I'm going to try to fix it.
The helmets are totally in focus, but you're not.
Okay, there's my hand. Come on, you can do it.
Ooh. No.
Okay, you know what?
Wait.
You got it.
Okay, I'm going to sit
Don't
like
lose
this
it.
the whole show.
Great job.
Okay,
Don't lose it.
I'm sorry. What a waste of time that was. So,
we're going to talk about The Convert, which
it's almost. Go ahead.
No, it's there's a lot to unpack with this episode, to be sure. Let's just dive in from the beginning. Let's just talk about it. It picks right up from where we left off.
It did. I have a
Mando's
nickname.
still just like half on the stairs. Like
He's like,
just laid out.
He's had that pog soup hangover thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're sitting there on the steps, and Bo Katan is deep in thought. Bo Katan is up to something. I'm just going to say it right now.
No question.
There's something
She
going
lied
on.
to him, so she did that for a reason.
there's something going on here. But anyway. I'm sorry. Talk. Somebody else talk. I listen to this podcast and I'm like, I talk way too much.
So the only thing that really tripped me up was that she's like, you fell. Or he's like, I fell. And she's like, yeah, you did fall. Did you see anything while you were falling? And he's like, no. And I was like, he fell? How did he fall at like 3 times the speed of her jetpack?
That's what I said last week. And everybody,
and I was like, no,
you guys
couldn't
were
have
like,
been.
He got pulled down.
I still think he got pulled.
Because otherwise it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because he just went straight to the bottom. Like,
and he just
I don't know,
sat there.
Like 2 kilometers deep or whatever it was.
But then again, his suit is pressurized. He can go in space with that suit, can he?
But if he got pulled, wouldn't he have felt that?
Maybe he didn't have it pressurized at the time.
Yeah, I think he has to choose to pressurize it. But even if he fell, I don't care. How heavy is the Beskar? Like
the Beskar's probably pretty heavy, but
heavier than
I don't know if
it was interesting because we did find out that the cavern's not supposed to be open like that. Mm-hmm. And Bo Katan did say that she theorized that the aerial bombardment
had opened up
the cavern, which is really fascinating. And I love that angle because it makes sense.
It harkens back to another famous monster. Of course, the original Godzilla was awoken by the nuclear bombs in World War II. That's part of the story. Like it awakened this creature that was submerged for eons.
Right.
And so it's a similar type of thing. The mythosaur perhaps has been awakened by the bombings.
And I love how Bo Katan was like, "Did you see anything living down there?" I mean,
see anything?
It's like I didn't see anything. So I like how she.
And he does not.
Yeah. No, I like how she didn't say anything. Yeah, because I'm like, this is an angle now. She's got her angle. She's like, this is how I'm going to get control of all the Mandalorians.
Yeah, she wanted to make sure that that he could not, dispute her story but plus, would he have seen anything if he's falling in a dark chasm underwater?
Yeah, his light wasn't on.
No.
Or no, his light was on.
It was.
That's how she found him.
Well, didn't the armor say something about the mythosaur rising back in like Book of Boba Fett? And I wonder if this is it.
Yes,
it's happening.
Yes, like all these things are coming together.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a little bit of a jump here. So they have this discussion, and then they opt to leave. Okay, so they get in Bo-Katan's ship, and something happens almost immediately when they leave the surface of the planet.
Yeah,
Grogu tries to talk.
The TIE interceptors.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, so now there have been a lot
to Return of the Jedi.
There have been a lot of theories on the internet already, and I think I believe them. Have anybody heard?
You think they think
nothing?
You think they think they're Grand Admiral Thrawn's?
Mm-hmm. They think Thrawn is coming back, and this is how he's gonna be reintroduced.
Because they even say something like, "This is no warlord has this many TIE fighters with them," and it's possible.
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
Which means we may still see Ahsoka again in this series.
I think,
or Ezra.
Now, I think they're going to save Ezra for the
Ahsoka show.
Yeah.
But I mean, Thrawn would be really interesting to have him as the Spectre. And they may not even bring him in on this season. They might just hint and like that might be the cliffhanger finale. But that might be the case, because that would be perfectly dovetailed into the Ahsoka show, which would obviously be launching between this season and next season.
Yeah, the Ahsoka show comes out this summer. I think.
So I think they're going to tease Thrawn, and then you're going to see all of it in Ahsoka.
Well, if there's one thing about this show that this episode illustrates, is you have no idea from week to week
what the hell is going on.
I mean, literally, next week could be a replay of the holiday special played out with modern visual effects, as far as we know. And that's the thing about this show. Like, you don't hear about leaks. Like, there was no indication that this was going to be an episode about Dr. Pershing at all. I mean, you know, sometimes shows get spoiled or they get leaked, but this was like, oh, okay.
Because who was checking for Dr. Pershing?
Right.
No
but
one.
I don't know. We'll get there.
Just say.
So Bo Katan, by the way, that ship of hers can do some pretty cool maneuvers.
Oh yeah.
So it's a race to get him down. He's like, get me to my ship. Get me into my ship and I'll give you some backup. So they get into the atmosphere. They're being chased. Mando is not particularly great with the rear cannon. He's maybe gets one. And then he exits. He gets out.
I was like, what are they going to do? Oh, they're just going to drop him out of the ship.
So he drops. He gets in the ship.
Hit by the TIE interceptors when he was falling.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
And he gets in the ship and he starts doing some pretty cool stuff right away. And it's a pretty spectacular, scene. I liked it. I thought they did a great job. Bo Katan doing some pretty cool
N1 starfighter actually get used well. I don't know that they were used well in episode 1, but man, he just knows how to run that.
Oh
thing,
yeah,
blow stuff up, and man, how many kills does he have with that thing now? Like 8.
Well, he's blown it's one thing I did want to mention is I like how when he jumps out of the ship and then he turns on his jetpack right before he hits the ground, it's like not graceful at all.
Yeah,
like he hits the ground, he like rolls around, and it's
I think he timed it to the very last second. He had to get down there. Yeah,
I would not describe Din Djarin as a graceful character based on anything.
But you know what? In the very first episode of The Mandalorian,
in some gunfights, he was good.
He was awesome.
He's good. I mean, like just walking around in life, this man is tripping.
Yeah, that's fair.
On stuff all, but and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's kind of funny, but it's relatable.
It is. I mean, if you were wearing something that you could like see out of this, and the people who wear that mask say you can't see anything in this thing.
Yeah. So they just write it in.
But anyway, the whole cold opened with the TIE interceptors and the dog fighting, and all that stuff was fantastic. And hope you enjoyed that, because that's the only action you're getting.
Well, we did see
you left out something.
Bo Katan's castle.
Yeah, her home gets destroyed.
Oh man, that was heartbreaking.
The TIE bombers
thing get destroyed.
Took care of her home.
Yep.
And I think it's interesting, and I think this is something that goes back to why I think she's manipulating Din Djarin and ultimately the rest of his people. She doesn't take her helmet off through this entire, because she goes into the water and she comes out, but she leaves the helmet on. And she was not wearing the helmet when she came down into these caverns. So she's leaving this helmet on because she's going to use this later to her advantage.
I agree.
So that was interesting. At first I thought, like, because Katie Sackhoff is not, her character is not played by a body double.
Right.
So
thank God.
So I thought it's really weird that she didn't, as soon as she got back up to the top, she didn't take her helmet off and catch her breath or anything like that. She just left it on. And I was like, this is odd, but it makes sense later. And of course we'll get there.
It'll take a while to get there, but we'll get there.
I texted Jared. I was watching it and I was like, so 40 minutes in, and I'm wondering where they jumped to, because that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I'll have something to say about that. When they were the whole Dr. Pershing thing, that's like a 35, 40-minute straight shot in the show.
Yeah.
And it felt a little long. Now, watching it a second time, it didn't feel that way as much, because it wasn't under the weight of expectations at that point, because you'd seen it once already.
Yeah.
But it would have helped if they had edited in maybe even just some, a cut to them flying through hyperspace, having a little dialogue between the two ships, and then cutting back, maybe about halfway through, and dividing it up.
Yeah, that's like
a little bit.
A basic A and B story structure that this episode doesn't have. It's so weird.
Think about how old school Star Wars is structured. Think about Return of the Jedi. You have the space battle. You have Luke and Vader and the Emperor. You have the battle on the surface. Same thing with Phantom Menace, lightsaber battle, space battle, the Queen going after those guys. All of these stories are intercut together. This is a sandwich.
Yes.
This is Din Djarin and Bo Katan, Dr. Pershing. There's no, but this is something they did for 2 episodes in Book of Boba Fett. They completely went away from Boba Fett and went to Din Djarin. And now Din Djarin's own show is getting hijacked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something they're absolutely doing on purpose.
Well,
at least Dr. Pershing is a part of the Mandalorian show.
Yeah.
So
more so than Mando is part of Fett.
That this was supposedly some stuff that was originally going to be in the show that Gina Carano was supposed to have that got
this is
so
all part of the show, The Rangers of the New Republic. So this show involved what we're seeing now with Dr. Pershing in the New Republic. And when this show got shelved, basically canceled from production, Kathleen Kennedy suggested that they weave in some of the storylines into The Mandalorian. So what we're seeing here is actually what they had intended for Rangers of the New Republic.
I think
it's less of a weave and more of a.
It's here. Let me pry this door open.
Story structure aside, I think it's interesting because this is really the first look at not just the New Republic, because we've seen the fringes of it in the Mandalorian and the outskirts and the outer rim, but this is the heart of the New Republic. So we're seeing how's the New Republic treating its citizens, and what's the structure.
Well,
and I have to tell you, some of it is a little shady.
They all have numbers and not names.
It's a little shady.
That's just for those people in that program.
That's for but still, I think
there's some tactics going on that's really shady for some enlightened people. It looks
just like the little cubicles of monotonous,
Andor.
Andor, like of monotonous drudgery, machinery. You're a cog, like you don't matter.
Let's talk about it. Let's get into how we're introduced to this.
I think it's interesting for me personally. In the early 1990s, the expanded universe, which composed the comics and the novels, for a Star Wars fan in the early 1990s, that's all we had, right? And these stories, some of which are actually now being adapted into The Mandalorian with the Thrawn stuff, it was our look at what happened after the Empire fell. And for a minute, I thought, like, holy crap, it's like I'm almost like I'm seeing one of these old expanded universe novels come to life. Like stuff that I envisioned, when I was reading this stuff 30 years ago. It's like I'm seeing it realized. Like, for example, the tip of the mountain, that's the only natural part of the planet.
Cool. Yeah.
That's straight from the books. That is straight out of the novels. They talk about it in the Jedi Academy trilogy. It's the only place in Coruscant where you can still see the surface of the planet. And if you got to think, if they're at the tip of a mountain, say the size of Everest, how high up? I mean, how much has the planet been built up around that? So I think that's fascinating. And I really like that.
That's the music they were playing.
Yes.
During that scene.
Yep.
I thought that was fascinating. And I caught it on the second time through, the March of the Resistance.
Yes, it was the John Williams from The Force Awakens. It was they were using it as what do they call that? It's diegetic music, which is music that is actually in the story that you're hearing. It's music that the characters are hearing.
Right.
So they've actually used a John Williams tune there as something in the universe.
What was that word? Diegetic?
It's called diegetic music,
that.
where you're hearing music that the characters are
Right, I
hearing.
got you. Sure.
Yeah.
I like that whole walk around, but first off, we see Dr. Pershing in a very familiar place.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Dr. Pershing is giving a kind of like a TED talk almost.
Yes.
And of course, everyone, where was he?
Huh.
Jared,
he was
the Senate. No,
nope.
I don't know.
It was the
that's like Opera House.
He's in the Opera House.
Sorry.
So where Anakin and the Chancellor were having such an intimate moment, watching things.
Dark side of the Force is a pathway. Yep, that was it.
That was the place. So it was neat to see the stairs. It was all very familiar callbacks, and I liked it. I thought it was kind of neat. And you know what, though? Dr. Pershing has given a very interesting talk about cloning and what he was involved in with the Empire. And I thought it was kind of cool. And then I realized they take this interesting, smart scientist and they relegate him to a very mundane, boring job. And I think on purpose, they do that to test him, as we'll find out. But I liked how we saw him being almost like, he's kind of like confessing to the New Republic and thanking them for taking him in from his old former life and giving him a chance in the New Republic, which is what we find out is what they're doing to former Imperial people, like scientists and officers, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I thought that the talk he's giving was very interesting, especially for if you're watching The Bad Batch at the same time as this, they're also getting into this stuff with the Kaminoans on that show. And he mentions the Kaminoans in his speech about how he's trying to take what they did but combine DNA from different donors into something else.
You know what that reminds me of is that movie Gattaca.
Oh no! Don't talk about Gattaca.
Never seen it.
Well,
oh no!
Okay.
Not.
All I'm going to say is they would splice in like DNA and it was genetic stuff. No, but anyway,
that's Matt's like favorite movie, Gattaca.
Oops.
That's all he talks about.
It's not all I talk about.
Well,
it's like 92% of what I talk about.
In the early days of the podcast, every week he'd be like, "Hey guys, have you watched Gattaca yet, man? You watch Gattaca yet?"
I'm not gonna get into it.
It's so funny that Brian mentioned that.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Watch Gattaca.
Okay. But
yeah, very much so. I agree very much.
So he's actually, when he finishes his speech, and I thought the speech was very well done. He talked about how his mother died from a heart problem, which could have been corrected with a cloned heart.
When that happened, he touched his ear, and I thought he had like an earpiece in, and somebody was feeding him information to say.
Too.
Yeah,
I did too.
But then you notice it was a tick later.
He did it later. Yeah,
he does it when he lies. I mean, it's very obvious because he did it when the robot asked him if he had problems with the New Republic.
What was he lying about when he did it on stage?
Well, I can't remember.
Story about his mother.
No, was it that?
Yeah, I think that's when he put his hand to his ear and then started talking about his mother.
I think that's why from the beginning I had trouble knowing if I, as a viewer, am supposed to like trust him or sympathize with him or care about him at all. Yeah. And so the whole time I'm watching this, I'm just like, do I care? Do I care about this guy? I don't know if I care about this guy. Do I care about him and his new friend? I don't know. I don't know if I care.
And they took the kind of like an Andor-ish kind of cue on this, because when he's going into where his housing is for the first time and he's talking to these amnesty people like himself, you get that real inside, baseball of like what real people in the New Republic are like, and former Imperials. It's not just like stormtroopers with guns. They're people with stories. And, I liked how they're like, what do you miss? What do you miss about the old days,
Like, don't act like you don't miss something. You do.
Yeah. And it was interesting. What did he miss? He missed the
biscuits.
Crackers.
The biscuits. Yeah. Travel biscuits.
The travel biscuits.
Yeah.
Or as Lindsay correctly says, crackers. That's the British term for them, is biscuits. We know they're crackers.
They were all British people.
Yeah.
In Empire, so. I think I liked this all in theory, just not in this show.
Well, I actually nicknamed this episode Mandor because it was almost like an episode of Andor done in The Mandalorian. And I think it worked for me because I like, I mean, like Matt was saying, I like this deep dive nerd. Just I like the details, the day to day of kind of living in this world. And that's one of the things I really thought was cool about Andor was that you got a lot of that in that show as well. And Mandalorian, as we've talked about, has really painted in the broad strokes. Like, this is more like classic Star Wars, like, laser guns and spaceships. And
how many episodes are there of The Mandalorians?
There's 8. And we've had 3.
Yeah. So I feel like I agree that I like it, and like I like that and I like watching it and I'm enjoying that. But then I'm like, okay, Andor had 9 episodes and took the first 3 to set up characters that you care about. So when you see the nitty-gritty of their everyday, you care.
It had 12. It had 12 episodes.
Or 12. Did it really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it took its time and it let you know everyone. You got to know everybody and you really cared about what happened to them in their day-to-day lives. To me, I'm watching this and I'm like, this is cool in theory, but I don't know. I don't care about this guy. I don't care about this woman.
So I thought about this. And, we'll talk about Dr. Pershing's fate, but, I don't think we're going to see this kind of sandwich again. We might, but I don't think we're going to. But what this does is this kind of closes the loop on Dr. Pershing, because I was actually wondering what happened to these people. And, I know that, Gideon is in some kind of tribunal, or is he?
Well, they speculate he may have escaped.
Right. So, so I was kind of wondering about that part of The Mandalorian, which they kind of pushed to the side. You don't really hear about. And now Dr. Pershing is kind of they're closing one of those loops, because I don't think we'll talk about it, but.
Well, yeah, his Swiss cheese now.
Yeah. He's not going to make it, but that loop is closed, but it's introduced, at least shown the light on someone else. And I think what is possible is that the Thrawn storyline is going to all come back to stuff like this, because I think you're going to find that Moff Gideon, this character, I don't even know her name.
Kane is her last name.
Kane. All right. Kane. I think you're all going to see that these are agents working with or for Thrawn.
Yes, they're Imperial. Or if she's not working for Thrawn, she's going off Gideon's order.
So you had to close that loop, and you had to reseed this kind of plot line that you almost forgot about. So they took a good sweet time to do it, but it's interesting, because let's talk about what happens with Dr. Pershing, and let's talk about how the New Republic treats its people.
Well, they do say when the ex-Imperials are sitting around the picnic table there, they say, well, this is better than the Empire would have treated us, because the New Republic is, and I heard the comparison made to Operation Paperclip, which is where the United States government put ex-Nazis to work on the space program, in order so they could, do something useful. And this is very similar, although I don't know that Dr. Pershing's particular set of skills are being put to use in this clerical.
So I think this is on
nonsense that he's doing.
I think it's on purpose. So I think you see Dr. Pershing in a cubicle. He's filing random data. I'm not sure what the data is on his on his Commodore 64 computer keyboard.
It was basically, they were logging assets for disposal.
Right. Now,
Imperial assets. Yeah.
So here's someone who obviously is very smart, who had access to a lot of high-tech stuff, who has ambition to excel in the field of cloning, and they put him in a very boring job that's well beneath his skill set. So it's perfect. I think they perfectly put him there to test him to see, is he going to be okay with this, or is he going to go outside of his lane and try to do something else that we're telling him not to do, which is what Kane kind of quietly leads him down that road.
Yeah, I get the impression he feels very unfulfilled in his new role.
I think they put him there to see if that would come out of him. I think.
Yeah.
Which he tips his hand in that interview with that droid. Hey, is it cool if I pursue extracurricular activities that interest me? Well, what would those be? And apparently the New Republic ain't about cloning no more. Like that's not something they're messing around with. So when he says, you know, I'd like to continue some of my work, they're like, I probably shouldn't be doing that. So
sorry.
Yes. But I do think he is he's definitely being played. And there's something obviously not on the up and up about Kane right away. I mean, obviously we recognize her from, well, they put her at the beginning of the episode on the recap. So it's like anybody who watches those knows, okay, I got to watch out for this, and this. And I think that because I never bought in this whole episode, she was always acting strange, or there was something just off about her interactions with him, and it didn't surprise me for 1 second that all this was a setup to get what she wanted. Now I'm still not clear on kind of how, once they got to the Star Destroyer and he picked out the things that he wanted. Now all those New Republic policemen show up and apparently just let her, or they're working with her.
Yeah.
And they just let her walk away.
With the case, by the way.
With the case, which is going straight to Moff Gideon to have this research continued. Which begs the question. I mean, she obviously has free access to these Star Destroyers. I mean, she's been there several times.
Yeah, she has that. People trust her a bunch. She gets to just stay in the mind flayer room, which for some reason, I know I'm jumping ahead a little, but for some reason they leave the dial up to 11. They like allow it to stay. I'm like,
to 11.
Just stop it. Like, make it so it can't go that far. Why would you leave that?
Well, so that you could turn Pershing's mind to oatmeal.
I'm like, what?
I thought of this idea that maybe it fries him, but not so much that he loses his skill. He turns into like a mad scientist, crazy person.
Or
turn your dream to soup.
Well, one thing they don't do is make you listen to the screams of alien children.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this.
True.
So, but you know what though? Is it really any different? Because here's the New Republic, and the guys. Okay, look, Pershing is arrested. He's pleading his case that he was set up. In fact, what does he tell the Mon Calamari?
It was a trap.
It was a trap.
And then they cut to a shot of Akbar.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I thought was a tad on the nose.
So Akbar,
Jessica cracked up.
Akbar Doctor is saying, he's basically saying, look, it's not a mind flayer that you're telling me it's a mind flayer. This thing is a new experimental device, which we say experimental makes me like, oh. He says, you're just going to see some pretty colors and you're going to feel great. He says, I've done it myself and it felt very refreshing, or whatever he said. And
yes,
I'm like, this is terrifying.
And I've done it myself.
What?
So they put,
does it have that setting?
So they put Zarkov in the chair, and because it's just to me like Flash Gordon when Zarkov got fried. If you watch Flash Gordon, but they set it to like 1. It was the lowest setting, and you see him in there with the bright colors coming from under the mask. And he's like, having a great time.
And they leave.
Yeah.
And she jacks it to death.
They all leave.
Yeah.
You know,
she jacks it up, and they just leave the room.
You think there should be some oversight there or something?
Sure.
Hey,
with the medical personnel.
That's that could be that is really strange.
Yeah.
Something that
somebody's getting written up. Some is true.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So we
brains are
see
oozed all over the floor later.
we see the beams going into his head turn from like pretty iridescent to like dark red, and it's like it's obviously wrecking.
And he
his
starts
brain.
like convulsing a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has retained anything. I think he's done.
Well, so but
that's how Pershing gets put away.
But here's my question: Don't they need Pershing? Would it be better to kidnap him than to destroy his brain?
Well,
because you got to think they probably need his knowledge to work on what they're working on.
If you've watched The Bad Batch,
I have.
They may still have a
Kaminoan. Okay, so they have other people that they're working with.
I think Dr. Pershing is a loose end that they had to snip and get rid of. I think he was just a liability. He knew too much, and what they needed him to know was what they needed to get to continue the work, and he got that for them, and then he was a liability. So they offed him. So
yeah, well, that's
And
go ahead, Lindsay.
No, it's good. I think I liked that they went back to this, and I think I liked this stuff, but I think it was maybe more of a pacing like issue and the structure we talked about issue that's making it hard for me to have really liked it.
Yeah,
it's just the way that they presented it.
I have a friend of mine who watched about an episode and a half of Andor and hated it, and he goes, "This is the worst episode of The Mandalorian that they put out." Now, I don't agree with that. It's just different. It's just different than the others.
Yeah.
But having watched Andor, and then, I think I said this earlier, there's a certain weight of expectations that comes with, a Mando episode, right?
And it's
to have something, and to have something so different than what we are used to seeing, I think could be off-putting to some people.
And we just talked about like 2 episodes ago about how it was so much sillier even than the last 2 seasons of Mandalorian by the time we were on that episode. And now it's like way darker.
Yeah, it was way darker. But, it's just, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Sorry.
There's some theories now that we're going to see more in this kind of story. Hopefully we're not going to see, 3/4 of the episode chunked out like this anymore. Hopefully this is just woven in, but we may see Mon Mothma in her new role in the New Republic. So we might see some Andor familiarity. Yeah.
At this time, if the expanded universe is to be believed, Mon Mothma she's the Chancellor.
That's right. So we may see that actress again. They're going to tie it all together, I think. And who knows? I have got a lot of faith right now with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. They really haven't steered me wrong yet. And I think Andor set a different bar for the Star Wars shows. I think, even though it didn't get the reception because it was a different kind of show than The Mandalorian, I think story-wise, it really set a new bar. I think they were doing a heck of a job in Andor. And this is obviously reflective of that because they are really taking a deep Andor dive with The Mandalorian. Now, this is probably going to be their lowest rated show yet of the season, and they may pivot. We'll see what they do, but I think this storyline is going to play out.
I don't think there's any pivoting here. All this season's been in the can for 6 months.
Everything's liquid, man.
Well,
you might see Fozzie Bear. You might see
what do you think?
We do have the rest of the episode.
Yes, that's right.
That's true.
I mean, after that exhaustive marathon of Pershing,
but I need to piggyback on something Matt said, and I read on I don't know, it was the Direct or Slash Film, but one of these movie websites. So the numbers for the Mandalorian season 3 premiere have come out, and they are terrible.
Is that right?
They are 2% below the Book of Boba Fett premiere.
Really? Wow.
Ouch.
Now, the most watched Disney Plus show so far has not been The Mandalorian. It has been Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, the season 2 numbers for Mandalorian are very close to Obi-Wan Kenobi levels. But this season debuted under Book of Boba Fett as far as eyeballs.
Huh. I wonder
that.
Well,
I don't know,
I have
but that's I mean, you know,
I know people who are not Star Wars fans at all, who've never ever participated in any kind of Star Wars, like anything. They don't watch the movies, and they watch The Mandalorian because it had a really good, marketing program. And like my brother-in-law never watched Star Wars and loved season 1 of The Mandalorian, and would talk to me all the time about it, ask me questions. But you know what it was? It was really neat if you've never seen Star Wars, because it was all kinds of fun stuff. But season 2 started taking different dives, a little more of the expanded universe being revealed, a little stuff that's more deep cut for fans. And you know what? I think they probably lost a lot of those first time, chance, viewers. And it's now down to the core Star Wars fan watching these shows. And to be fair, Disney Plus in general has had a lot of problems with retaining its subscribers. So I think this is indicative of streaming. I think there's too much content out there now for people to choose from. There's so much going on right now. My God, the choices people have on all the streaming platforms to watch. How do you even schedule? How do you even figure out to watch these days? It's insane.
It's been a while since season 2 also. Like, if you didn't check into Book of Boba Fett and you were like, oh, season 3 is coming
2
out.
years.
Cool.
Great point.
Yeah, you're like, you might have missed it, or you don't care about the show anymore, or you heard that there was some shit in Boba Fett you needed to watch, and you're like, I'm not doing that. Never mind.
It's
like
true.
you
That's
said, if you're not a core Star Wars fan, you're not going to watch Book of Boba Fett.
They are, I mean, with numbers like that, they are, of course, all across all streaming companies. They figured out that the goose is no longer laying golden eggs anymore, and there's not just going to be free money for anybody who wants a streaming show. Right. We saw this week that, thank God, Willow was canceled because it was freaking terrible.
What a shame. What a shame.
But that's the first step I think you're going to see in some dominoes falling. Like, look, you've got to start making stuff that's going to get us eyeballs, or you're not going to get a season 2. Because the dominoes are falling. I mean, it's not just Disney Plus, it's across every, Netflix spent something like $4 billion on content 2 years ago. That's not sustainable to anybody, because how are you making that money back? You're not making that money back in subscribers. You're not releasing it to theaters. So what are you doing? So I think when I hear about numbers like this, and then an episode comes out like this, where, like Brian said, his buddy was like, "This sucks. What am I watching?" And I mean, you can see, Lindsay, some of your reaction was like, "Okay, this is okay, but I mean, what are we doing? What is
I've
this?"
never been on my phone more. I was like, "Oh, we're still here." Okay.
And
okay.
But the fact of the matter is, even though I like that they showed the top of the mountain, and I like all the nods to the crap and stuff that I remember from 30 years ago, they can't just make a TV show for me. And, just because Jared or Brian or Lindsay or Matt thinks something's cool, that doesn't mean that everybody else is fascinated by the post-Imperial world of Coruscant in the nascent years of the New Republic.
A perfect example is, I think Andor, take the Star Wars out of Andor, it's still a great show. It was, if it was just a sci-fi show and you took the Star Wars elements out of it, it was still a really great show. But what they did so smartly is they didn't overload it for viewers with deep, with in your face deep cuts. They gave little things, like you got stuff in Luthen's store that if you're interested, you can start picking them out of the shelves and you're excited. But it wasn't so much in your face about what it was. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, you understand what's going on, but I still think you could take Star Wars out of it and it would be a great show. It would have been a really interesting show anyway. And I think that's what is the key to keeping this alive with non-Star Wars viewers. To your point, you can't make it just for us. It has to be for everybody, or else you're going to lose in the end. And it's unfortunate because I don't want to lose this stuff.
No. And you can't take, like we've all talked about here, you can't take these hard left turns into a totally different show. And I think, unfortunately, this is something Favreau has started in Book of Boba Fett, and he's maybe leaning into a little bit. Like, hey, like I said at the start of the show, now when I tune in, am I going to get something about a weak-way janitor on Coruscant for an hour? It's very possible.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, there's something to be said for just a strong linear story with forward motion.
I agree.
And thank goodness we got some of that in the opening and closing minutes of the episode.
Let's talk about this top of the sandwich.
Okay. So
the bottom of the sandwich.
Bottom of the sandwich.
So Pershing's, he's Swiss cheese, and although listen, high level stuff here. Love seeing the junk Star Destroyers. All that stuff was really cool.
That was.
So yeah, we come back to this planet, which I don't think is named. It's obviously where they fought the crocodile turtle.
Where they like to baptize people in giant turtle croc water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The beach. Big beach planet.
So he brings or they're in separate ships, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they each have their own ships. So they come upon they go into the cave, and
well, I think it's funny when they're flying in that he makes it a point to tell Bo Katan, this will go a lot better if you leave your helmet on.
Yes.
True.
Yes. Because I think he probably still thinks like, okay, well, she's gonna walk in there and just insult everybody.
Right. So keep your tattoos covered.
By the way, before I forget, I'm sorry, when they were first in the ship, when they took off the planet before they were attacked, I think we got a "This is the way" out of Grogu, didn't we?
We totally did.
Well, he went,
That's what I was saying earlier.
Oh yeah, he did kind of mumble something.
I like poo-poo. That's what he said.
And they both were like,
well, he said something, but I think it was just gurgling. I mean, it was purposeful.
I have to go back and listen.
If you try really hard to hear him say "this is the way," you can.
Way this is.
I like poo-poo.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Anyways,
yeah.
It's like, my dad doesn't have one on this ship. Can I use yours?
Yes.
What's funny is we learn how he proves that he was there.
Yes.
We saw him take the water sample.
Yes.
But
there was no cell phone.
Really we thought no cell phone, no recording, just a witness. Yeah. Well, we don't believe her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they don't even like her.
Yeah, they're standing off. They're like, you're an apostate. You're Bo Katan of Clan Kreese. You're an apostate.
And that's the big guy. That's Paz Vizsla, voiced by Jon Favreau, who is a relative of Pre Vizsla from the Clone Wars,
who at once had
who hates Bo Katan.
He had the Darksaber too for a while.
Also voiced by Jon Favreau.
Yes, that's true. He was voiced by Jon Favreau,
and so is this guy.
Yeah.
Although this guy's like giant. I think he's cool looking. He's just like a big bruiser looking guy.
I like his helmet. How it's like recessed.
Yeah, yes. Cool. He looks
cool.
Yeah, I watched those episodes of the Clone Wars the other day just to
refresh.
I was like, oh man, that's so good. That's such great stuff.
Well, so I think Paz Vizsla, he doesn't like Bo Katan or Din Djarin. And it's obvious in this show. He's just like, well, there. And he fought him in Book of Boba Fett. Right? And so anyway, I guess she has the armorer has a pH balance monitor that she pours the water in her little cauldron. She's like, oh, that's it. That's from Mandalore.
Kind of glows a little bit.
Yeah, she's like, you have been in the living.
I think I saw something that was like the reason only Mandalorians can make like armor out of Beskar is because they temper it with like the very specific water from their planet, and that maybe she's already got water there, and that's how she knows it's the same.
Didn't she pour something when she was making that kid's helmet a couple weeks ago? She poured something in the water that looked like this stuff.
Yeah, I feel like she's got some of the water from there, or something like something.
Well, makes sense.
I actually heard something funny. I don't even remember where I heard this, but that if they all wanted to have a holiday without their helmets, they could just go to the surface of Mandalore and like chill in the sun and enjoy it, and then they could all go swimming and come out and put their hats back on, because now it's not poison. You can do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was funny, like a bunch of sunbathing Mandalorians.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because now they know that by passing this on, that Mandalore is not poisoned and that the mine still exists. So it's added a new level of I don't know, confusion with this little group of Mandalorians doing their thing. So, and it's interesting now. You've got, I mean, it's such a ragtag group. You got all kinds of.
I think they're all interesting looking, though. They all kind of have different styles of colors of armor.
So now, and the armor as a de facto leader of this group, what's going to happen with Bo Katan? She's not leading on at all. She has that ace in the pocket. She sees the the mythosaur skull. She knows what's going on. She knows that she knows that this cult will follow everything she does if she can get that mythosaur. And
she does it by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
and that brings us to the end of the episode, where the armorer asks her, Bo Katan, Kryze, have you removed your helmet since bathing in the waters? And she's like, no. Well, you are now part of us. So in that little, and then it's kind of funny, they all come by and like pat her on the back and, hey,
cool now.
Hey, welcome home and all this. But yeah, she's planning something. As she looks at the mythosaur skull that's up on she's like, okay. And if we remember her friends abandoned her, she said, and are out just mercenaries in the galaxy now. So I'm not sure what she has up her sleeve, but there's something. If she's
gonna try to continue to be deceptive with Din Djarin, because I feel like he doesn't care. He's like, please fight me for this sword. I don't want it. I don't care. I don't need it.
He's tried to give it to her.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he's gonna fight her that much if she tries to take over.
And I feel
like to leave it laying around for her to use. And then she just happens to keep it.
Well, I think she does have, though, she has affection for Din Djarin.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying she's interested in him romantically or anything, but she cares about him. And I'm just curious how that plays into the game she's playing with the rest of these people.
Yeah.
Because, she wouldn't have gone after him and saved his life if she didn't care about him. So I'm curious as to what her game is.
We'll see. It's complex.
Unfortunately, we won't find out, because next week we're visiting the Weequay janitor on Coruscant. And we'll get back to Bo Katan in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian, stop. Brian, notes. Lindsay, notes.
I got nothing.
I don't think I have anything.
Okay. Wow. Well, I think
although I would like to say something.
Okay, please.
About Pershing getting lured into this trap that he got pulled into by a girl who doesn't even have any sex appeal. I mean, come on, dude.
What does that matter?
What are you doing? I don't know. She just seems
nice
so.
To him.
Yeah,
she's nice to him. This okay. Sex appeal.
I don't know.
You're okay. So
you don't even know if he's into women.
Think about this, right? Someone like Dr. Pershing, who has dedicated his life to, the pursuit of science and dark laboratories and probably a lame social life. I would venture to say that any woman, and she's not an unattractive woman, giving him any attention would be exciting.
Person. They're all nice to him. Yep. And he's like, oh my God, people are being so nice to me. And then she manipulates him with the crackers. And he's like, oh my God, I have a friend. Like,
look,
he's so...
and I'm gonna go eat glowing popsicles.
Yeah, he's so.
They did kind of go on a date. That's kind of a bit of a date.
They kind of did go on a date.
If you're eating glowing popsicles together, you're on a date. I don't care. You're on a date. All right.
It totally read to me as just anyone is being nice to him, and she is totally sensing that he's completely manipulatable
100%,
to that.
100%.
I got that too.
100%.
I did too. It just seemed kind of,
But they're eating glowing popsicles together.
And then he drops his.
And then she's like, "Do you want to touch the rock?"
You idiot. You know what? That actually just remind me of a little something, and I don't mean to keep dogging on this episode, but the entire Coruscant date scene, I thought the sound design was, I know the song was like, that was
sure.
I'm like, they're in a massive cityscape with a bajillion cars and people, and it's like there's no ambient sound
that's a good
around
point.
them. There's like no crowd sounds. I thought the popsicles didn't look very good. They look totally fake.
They did look a little wonky. They're a little wonky.
I will continue to.
What is the budget for this scene?
I'll continue to pile on. Those Mon Calamaris look like plastic.
They look terrible. Thank you.
Like, I was like, how in 1983 with Admiral Akbar does he look more real than these? And I was like,
yeah,
just and the way they talked. I mean, I appreciate the use of practical effects, of course, but you can't smooth out that.
I agree.
Yeah,
and
so I did. It felt like, yeah.
There was a little cheapness, I think, in some of the creatures in this episode. So
they probably blew their budget on the last episode,
or they
because that creature looks so amazing.
Yes.
Like how amazing all of
shows
that
do this stuff.
This.
Shows know that they have to manage their budgets, and some episodes are going to be bigger than others. But to your point, you go on YouTube and you could probably find a couple dozen hobby animators that can make better looking, deep fake Mon Calamari than what you saw in there.
Yeah. So. Some royalty-free ambient crowd sounds. I don't know.
Yeah, just put it up in the background.
They're sound like they're completely alone.
Yeah.
Surrounded by a bajillion people.
Yeah.
And cars.
Well, that's one of the disadvantages of shooting everything in the volume.
You could tell like that. I could tell like it's not even it just looked. Sorry.
Even when he's riding in that taxi, which by the way, you're riding open convertible and it's like
with no.
What is
yes.
You can have that kind of conversation, but it's like.
One thing I did like was how creepy all the little robots that were monitoring him were.
Oh
like
yes,
the
those
robot
guys.
that drives his car, that does his interview. They were fucking creepy as hell.
Yeah,
in a good way.
Especially the interview one was very like.
Yeah, like. You like this?
You're happy, right?
Yeah, like that's exactly. Yeah, the New Republic. There's something going on there.
Anybody that doesn't give you a name.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the fact that they're frying your brain, even if it's just like reconditioning your brain.
Just like
there's some suspect stuff happening here. So the New Republic is shady, but you know what? That's, I guess, an upgrade from the old Empire. So.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We know. I mean, we know that we know what happens to the New Republic eventually. So, well, but we don't know what's going to happen next week, and surely now we have no idea. Are we going to get 10 minutes of Bo Katan and Din Djarin, and then we're heading back to Coruscant for the janitor? We will see. We will see, and we hope we see you next week here on the Carbonite Chronicles. We will be talking about everything that happens, and we hope to see you here. And gang, I think with that, we'll see you next time.
You can't live without this content. So subscribe to the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.